Hello, it's Sarah Jane from Access Your True Nature, and I am really wanting to share some important news and information with you today. If you have ever sort of felt like you are depressed or constantly anxious, hi Kelly Heath, nice to see you here. I hope my connection holds so I can get this information out to you all, because I want to really discuss a topic today, and that's the topic of gaslighting, because I've seen this show up so many times in my own life in past relationships, whether those are love relationships, whether it is a narcissistic boss that you're working for, whether it is someone in your family. You may be at the effect of somebody gaslighting you, and I just want you to know that you can change it. You're not alone. You're not crazy. You may just be being controlled by someone who says they love you, but they are actually using manipulation, and it's dangerous, because we give up our own intuition and our own trust and our own self-love. Actually, we lose our self-esteem and our confidence, and it's so insidious and so chronically unpredictable that a lot of times we don't even know that this is happening. Hi Gina, nice to see you here. Give me some love. Hi Debbie, nice to see you. I know it's a bit of a heavy topic to be discussing on a Sunday, but I want you to have this information, because the sooner that you actually get control over the things that are running your life, that are taking you away from loving yourself and being able to say no. Hi Asa, all my favorite powerful love warriors on with me today. So thank you for being here. So I want to talk a little bit about what gaslighting actually is, because I've been seeing so much of this pattern showing up with my clients, and as I said, I lived with this and didn't know what it was, and really thought I was losing my mind. To the point where I checked into a mental hospital when I was living with a narcissistic gaslighter for 15 years. And when it is constant and it's daily, you start to sort of disassociate and go into one of the attachment styles. Maybe you can recognize some of these patterns, but I really want you to know what this is, because it's dangerous. It's not just dangerous for your own health and well-being, but it's dangerous for the people that are in your life as well, that are perhaps in your care. And this whole thing around gaslighting is a pattern where I find a lot of codependent and narcissistic relationships are in the foreground, where one person is highly invested in maintaining power over the other and making sure that they're always right and that you agree with them, because underneath it they're actually frightened, and most of the time they're frightened that you would leave if you knew who they really were. And the three most common ways that I find this present in most relationships, because let's face it, we're all traumatized on some level, is that the first one is that, you know, when someone has narcissistic tendencies, like my ex-husband, and they assert this sense of being bigger. There's a grandiosity around it, that they know better, and it's almost like a parent and child relationship, because they're highly invested in maintaining that value to make you think that they're correct, that they know better than you. And if you've ever kind of had somebody in your life that is like that, it's really because underneath it all, they are insecure. They're an insecure, scared person. And they really think, as I said before, that if they lose power and you know who they are, that you'll leave them. So they don't want you to know that they are intrinsically flawed, so they'll gaslight you. And any kind of relationship where there's addiction, so this could be drugs, it could be workaholism, it could be gambling, it could be sex. My ex-partner had all of that going on, and he was highly invested in that I didn't know what was really going on, what he was really doing, because if you did, you wouldn't love them. Right? So when you smell alcohol on their breath, or there's money disappearing out of your bank account, they'll tell you that it's not true, that you were careless, that you didn't take better track of the finances, or you're being too sensitive or you're being paranoid. So they'll always push you down, and they'll always make you start to doubt what your gut's actually telling you, that there's something wrong. And I see this a lot with people that have partners that are cheating on them. There's this crazy making part of relationship, and oftentimes it's not so much about the affair, and it's more about the insidious lying, right? And the gaslighting while they're having the affair. So that when you kind of ask about, why they didn't answer the phone when you were desperately trying to get hold of them, or you notice when you pop into your husband's office, or that there's a little bit too much intimacy and flirting going on with a secretary or somebody that they work for, and you keep asking, what's going on, but they're so invested in the affair that they and in keeping that relationship going with you and with the other person, that they'll carry on gaslighting. So another example of this would be, and how it can sort of filter into your relationships. And I think, I definitely can see now that there were always red flags. There was always that part of my gut that was kind of going, oh, something's off here, and then they kind of flip it on you. But say, for example, that you are in an argument and your partner says something that really hurts your feelings. And instead of them saying, I'm sorry, they'll say, oh, why are you being so touchy? Do you have your period? Is it that time of the month? And it kind of takes you out of that feeling that you're anxious about, or that you just feel is off, and you start to doubt that, oh, maybe it is because I have PMS, or maybe I am being oversensitive, and you start to doubt yourself. So when you ask your partner to listen to your concerns, instead of them saying yes, they'll tell you that it's not their problem, and that you're being too needy. And I find 90% of the time it's always in direct conflict with the partner, and it's a power struggle because they want to be right, and they want you to be in approval of them and back down, and the other partner is the one, if that's you in this case, that really wants to just be felt and seen and heard. You want the approval that you're not going crazy. So you're getting upset on a specific topic, and your partner or the boss or your sister or whoever it is will say, oh, you're totally out of control. Are you off your antidepressants? Or, oh, stop being so irrational. Take a chill pill. And in my case, what was worse was always that they would kind of throw my family at it. They'd say, oh, you're being just like my sister, or, oh, you're being just like my business partner. And it immediately puts you into this place where you're in defense. You start having to defend that that's not true, or that's not what you were talking about. That's not what you were upset about. So if when you start to question your partner of why did you come home so late, or another red flag was always that he never wanted to eat dinner with me. He was never hungry, and yet he would tell me in the same breath that he had not eaten anything all day, and it's kind of a nagging doubt that it's just like, well, why are you not eating? And it never crossed my mind to think, well, maybe he'd already eaten with his mistress, or he'd eaten somewhere else. And the same thing, if you've ever been accused of having money missing from a joint account, and you're concerned about it, and you have a right to be, and they say, no, you're making it up, you're crazy, you must have spent it, they make it your fault. Is this helpful? Is this making sense? Let me know if you're enjoying knowing about gaslighting. Because a lot of times I'll see also couples where they want to go into couples therapy, or they want to go and see a marriage counselor because they know there's something off with their relationship. Give me some hearts, give me some love if this is useful, if this is valuable for you, or maybe someone that that's being gaslighted, or is under sort of emotional or mental abuse. And a lot of times what happens too is that we're so afraid that we are going crazy that we don't feel that we have a safe place to even talk about this stuff. Good, Acer. Awesome. Yeah, you know, we all know somebody, or maybe, you know, maybe it was you, and, you know, they'll always kind of, like in that situation with people saying, the one partner will say, you know what, I can't do this on my own, but I, you know, something's off, I'm not feeling loved, I'm not feeling cared for, and it doesn't matter what I do, I just can't please you, I can't get it right, and I think we need help, and I want us to go and see somebody together. And they'll say, oh, you need to get over it, you know, oh, you need to go for therapy, this is not my problem, that it's your problem, and it's just like you never feel like the situation is ever revolved, right? So it's this constant pattern that keeps going and going, and you wonder why you have no joy left and you don't know who you are anymore. And because I deal a lot with unresolved trauma in my practice, a lot of people often say, you know, that they've been confronted by a partner about an affair, and they'll say, oh, you're just being jealous and insecure, and you need to give me more sex because, you know, you need to do this and you need to do that, and there's a lot of shame involved in it because they're denying that they're having an affair, and they have to make you wrong. So anytime they make you feel ashamed in an argument when you're trying to just be seen or heard in the relationship, they have to keep intimidating you to be right. So usually they have to shut you down with any kind of form of shame trigger. Okay, and that's really where it takes you out of what's really going on, and then it has you questioning your sanity and your doubt. Like, oh gosh, you know, maybe I am being a bit selfish, and oh, you know, maybe I am a bad mom, or I am inconsiderate, or I am stupid. You know, so they don't. You don't act like you're loved because they're doing all this stuff for a way to cover up what they're actually up to. So they have to shut down the conflict when you bring up the topic really, really fast because they're feeling uncomfortable. And, you know, this may not sound like emotional abuse or trauma, but what I find is so confusing about gaslighting is that when you continue to feel invalidated, you know, and this is how it was for me, because it was daily, you don't notice it, right? It's so subtle. It's the little jabs, it's the little innuendos, it's the little narky comments that just don't make you feel good. It builds up over time, and it starts to have you question who you are as a person. So, you know, it's not, this is why it's so insidious and so dangerous, because there aren't those obvious signs like you see in physical abuse, or where there's bruises, or there's, you know, black eyes, there you can see physical abuse. But with name calling, there's no signs, right? The person just, and maybe it's a friend of yours or somebody that you know, it's just, they just become more withdrawn. They almost look like they've given up on life, right? There's this deep depression and the numbness. It's like they're there, but they're not there. So if you know somebody like that, please, you know, reach out and ask them what they need, and create that safe space. You know, we're not trying to fix, we're just trying to hold support for the person that maybe is feeling that it's not safe because there's so much shame in, I should be able to figure this out by myself, I should know better, because we cognitively know. But that's the danger of gaslighting, is that it doesn't come with these obvious physical symptoms. It's very much under the radar. And when a trusted loved one is constantly dismissing your feelings and replacing them with their perspective and their interpretation, it's very confusing. It's crazy making, and it does lead you to doubt, to think that you're going insane, or you need to get help. And I was definitely there, and I see this so much that I wanted to talk about it today, because it's just like it happens everywhere in any kind of relationship, whether it's a boss that's bullying you and you're wondering why you're in constant pain, or you have neck pain. You know, I speak to people like this all the time, or why you can't fall pregnant, because you're actually living in this fight, flight, survival response where your nervous system is switched on all the time, and it's not safe to create babies. It's not safe to actually start to look at, you know, what is missing from your life when you're constantly running on empty and treading on eggshells, waiting for the next shoe to drop because you never see it coming. So when I see my clients come in to see me because they think they're going crazy, you know, I'm always looking for very obvious statements, and the person often presents in a very confused, sort of numbed out deer in the headlights state of, you know, am I overreacting? And, you know, am I wrong to be worried that there's 2,000 Rand missing from my bank account? Or, you know, am I reading too much into it because I found a whole bunch of naked pictures of women on my husband's phone? And you know, am I wrong to wonder why when he says I shouldn't be, you know, looking at his phone, or I have a problem? And there's always secrecy and sort of very clandestine red flags that we often can't see when we're in it. So to be healthy, we really need to know who we are and what we stand for and what our boundaries are. And when we're constantly invalidated like this and told that we're making it up and that we're being too sensitive, we really do start second guessing ourselves, especially if we're naturally overgiving, empathetic, very sensitive, people pleasing A-type personalities, which are most of my clients. And this sends us down a path of really losing our sense of self, of not being able to trust our gut instincts, and this cycles into this very downward spiral of things like fibromyalgia and insomnia and backache and neck pain and all sorts of physical symptoms. And in the mind, that we feel like we're literally losing our minds. And that long-term outcome of chronic depression and anxiety is low self-esteem. It's a lack of confidence. It's like we can't make up our mind because we're always waiting to get a response from the other person, especially if it is in a codependent and narcissistic style where one is more powerful over the other. And I know what it feels like, you know, to feel like it doesn't matter what we do, we're never enough. It doesn't matter how hard we try to please that person, it never makes any difference. And anyone can gaslight. So I want you to know that, you know, it's that whole victim, perpetrator, observer cycle that is part of being human. And it's not that it's wrong, it's just the more you know about this and the more that you know that it's not your fault, the more you can do something about it. And obviously it goes without saying that if you are in a space right now where your life is in danger, or you're concerned about the safety of your family, please get some support. There are amazing organizations, there are fantastic trauma counseling organizations out there. Get support, because you cannot deconstruct and integrate the feelings and the thoughts into a way that's going to give you the confidence and the strength to go forward on your own. So it's really important that you get support in this, because it's not a place that you should be living if any of this is going on in your life. So, you know, whatever type of behavior opens up and exposes you to a gaslighting relationship, I really want you to understand your part in the relationship is always going to be magnified when the person is constantly seeking approval. The value system is very, very much based in the approval trap. So if you are a people pleaser, if you are the one that normally backs down because you don't want you don't like confrontation, or maybe your father was an abusive drunk and it made you feel very unsafe when that energy or attention was put on you, you're going to be prone to getting into relationships like this, right? Where you are the child in a parent relationship where you're still looking for love. And the empathy trap is really interesting, because many clients that I see are, you know, very much coming from this place that it's their fault. And that's where I can really see the point of view from a very neutral place, and look at where you're coming from, but at the same time to put it into perspective of looking at where somebody else's reality is actually trumping yours. Right? The empathy trap is there because you're seeking approval in the relationship and you want to feel validated, and at the same time all these other value systems that you have are that if I don't do this, that person won't love me, or they'll leave me. And if you don't know where the money is, or if you're if you're knowing and you have visible proof that your husband's having an affair, you kind of feel like you can't do anything to change it, because your value there is that you can't stand up to their manipulation, right? Because they're verbal or emotional bullies. And you can't hear your intuition and what it's telling you when it doesn't make sense, right? Things that don't add up, and you let them, they're making their perspective doubt yourself. Does that make sense? All right, I'm going to try and keep this short, but if you're interested in looking at this, I've put a PDF together of like the 12 sort of red flags that you can look at to see how many of those you identify with, and then how you can actually get out and from under the control of somebody that may be gaslighting you. It's a really funny word, but basically it's a form of psychological abuse, where false information is presented to the victim by a spouse or another primary caregiver, and it makes you doubt your perceptions and your intuition and your judgments and your memories and even sanity. And it came about from a film. I think it was a play actually, in the 1930s, where Charles Boyer and Ingrid Bergman were the characters in this movie, and Bergman's wife kept telling her she was imagining things, like she was dimming the house's gas lights as part of his way to steal her deceased auntie's money and his jewels. So the gas lights dim whenever he was in the attic in this movie looking for the jewels and the hidden treasures, and over time his constant, insistent and persistent lies really caused her and other people around her to think she was going mad. She started to really question her sanity. So even though the plot of Gaslight, the movie, is a little outlandish, it really is just about denying someone's intuitive sense of reality, is in fact a very common form of abuse and manipulation. And in my practice, I see this sort of behavior related to a lot of marital infidelity, and a lot of places where people feel like they cannot leave their jobs because their bosses are controlling them, because maybe they know too much information and too much of the funny stuff that was going on in the business. So the only way to keep them quiet is to constantly demean and put them down, and let them question their sanity. It's just nasty, and it's not okay. So a lot of times too, there's sexual addiction involved, and in those kind of situations, and I'm talking back into relationships and marital relationships, the cheated on partner has typically had their intuition and their reality denied for years by their unfaithful partner. That was certainly the case when I was going through this, and landed myself with a nervous breakdown, because it really did get to the point where he was in such control over me that, hello Megan Dakin, that the only way out that I thought was out was, the threats was, well, you can leave, but if you leave, you're going to leave with nothing, or here's a gun, which you got to, loaded and all, go shoot yourself, because you're not leaving with anything. So you really do start to believe that that's the only way out, and it's just awful, and I want it to stop, which is why I'm coming to you on a Sunday giving you this information. So you do, if you're kind of feeling where you've lost hope or faith in your ability to even know what you want, or even know what's lovable about you anymore, and you're questioning your sanity or your reality, and you're starting to blame yourself for what you're thinking and feeling, please stop. Know that you can get support, and know that you don't have to stay in this, but you obviously need a plan of how to change it. Crazy making, yeah, isn't it? It's insane. It's a pleasure, my love. Yeah, I know so many of you are working in this field of healing, helping people to heal from their own trauma and return to love and get confident again. So I hope this is helpful. So just know, it's just like, it generally happens in a space where love is often turned against you. It's like, oh, the reason I'm working late is for us, and how could you be so selfish? You don't understand how hard I work to bring the money home and put food on the table. And then you do start to feel bad for even asking why your partner's late, or why they didn't come home, or whatever it is for you. So anytime there's shame in it, that's the very unnerving part about this, is that even emotionally healthy people are vulnerable to gaslighting, primarily because it occurs so slowly. It's so subtle, and it's gradually done to you over time. So it's a bit like putting a frog in a pot of water and warming it up, and warming it up and warming it up, so that it's set to boil. And because this temperature rises so gradually, you never realize that you're being cooked, right? The frog doesn't ever realize it's actually being cooked. And I see this sort of exact scenario all the time, where a woman that I know is so strong and is so powerful in her own right, and has a very healthy sense of self, and loves herself, over time just gets worn down and worn down and worn down, to the point where, like I was, it's like my own friends never even recognized that I was the same person. So that this often shows up in various forms of addiction as well. So it doesn't really serve a purpose, and it does a lot of damage. So if you know someone who is addicted in any way, shape or form, whether that's workaholism or alcoholism or whatever their choice of drug is, you will end up, if you're not aware of these signs, enabling them, right? Because it's that unhealthy codependency on top of the gaslighting that really becomes this sort of shared secret or delusion, with a very emotional tie that has you hooked into it. So, if you, I know I had one time that's husband, he had a drinking problem, and she kept wanting to try and get help for him. And he would say, oh, it's all in your head. I just had a drink with my friends before I came home. And he needed her to believe that lie, so that he could keep her hooked into enabling the drinking to continue. And it is a form of betrayal trauma in a way. And I speak a lot about betrayal trauma in my work. And for those of you that have experienced some of what it is to heal from trauma with me, there's many types of trauma, but usually the most painful and long-lasting is trauma that involves some kind of betrayal of relationship trust, and then you stop trusting yourself. I think that's one of my biggest woundings, and I still have days where I question what I trust, or if I trust myself, or if I can trust what I'm seeing or the information that's going around me, because I have been in recovery, so to speak, of that betrayal trauma, love triangle for a long time, and they're not necessarily even the person that's gaslighting you doesn't necessarily even know that they're doing it, but when there's intentional acts of neglect or abuse or even violence in close relationship, it makes matters worse when they're chronic. So when they're occurring repeatedly over a long period of time, and obviously this ties back into my work with healing from adverse childhood experiences, because that's really where we set ourselves up to be the people pleaser, or to be the one that always backs down or doesn't trust, or is always looking to the parent or the adult to tell you what to do, where you kind of get to a point where you don't know who you are and you don't even know what you love or what makes you happy anymore, is it's always going to be there. So the more that you know about this, and the more that you can find your place in relationship to this, the more that you can sort of get back to having a mind of your own, and not keep repeating these sort of chronic betrayal, trauma patterns such as gaslighting over again, right? Because all it does is it creates this toxic stress pile up, which fries your brain. So you have brain fog, you have digestive issues, maybe you have chronic migraines or neck pain. It can show up in so many different ways, including anxiety disorders, right? Depression, low self-esteem, attention deficits. There's so much about it, and I know that there's been a couple of studies that really examine this effect of the chronic sexual betrayal, right? So a lot of what they found was the majority of those cheated on spouses experienced a lot of these acute stress symptoms, and it makes sense from a physiological point of view with neuroplasty or nervous system rewiring, is that when you're swimming in this toxic soup of high cortisol all the time, when you have those feelings of anxiety, you forget to eat, right? So you're not feeding your gut with healthy live food and nuts and seeds and plant-based stuff. Your serotonin drops, your body chemistry goes out, you lack the sweetness, and it shows up in blood sugar levels and everything else. And to me, it's all characteristic of this sort of PSTD, and it's a very serious diagnosis. So you need support in your life to help you to get back to nourishing yourself, so that you can have the energy and the cognitive function, right? A sharp brain to be able to make rational decisions, not fear-based decisions. And I don't want you to wait until you get to a point where I did, or where I see so many of my clients that are showing up with chronic disease, right? Fibromyalgia, suicidal tendencies, panic attacks that are really shutting them down, so they're not able to go out there and love their lives and do the business that they love, because of this emotional pain. And instead of thinking that you're broken or you can't be fixed, I really want you to walk away from this conversation today knowing that you can change it. It's not your fault. And the simple truth is that a lot of survivors that I see of chronic betrayal trauma or adverse childhood experiences, where they've had this chronic, unpredictable, toxic stress build up and build up and build up for decades, we think we're coping. And it's the trigger, what switches you back into that PSTD type state, is never in the event, right? We think we've handled it, and we haven't. We've suppressed it to the point where you carry on with your life, and then something will happen, and it triggers, and before you know it, you've got full blown fibromyalgia or ME or something awful. And unfortunately, in these kinds of situations, because there's so much hurt and anger and confusion and betrayal, we oftentimes resent the idea that we might need help in dealing with these feelings, because there's a lot of shame in the way that our culture is these days, that we have to be independent, that we have to figure it all out by ourselves, and there's a lot of separation of that. So just know too, hello Monique, that you need to be able to ask for help in these situations, and at the very least, at least get some validation for your feelings, and get the education and the support so that you can move forward and out of this, and have some empathy for what's actually happened to you. You know, it's not your fault. And I want you to just really, really know that, you know, ultimately it's a violation, it's abuse. Whatever you, however you justify it, or however others have justified that it's okay, it's not okay. And I really want you to know that you can heal from this. You can get your self-esteem and your confidence back to actually live a life that you love, and love yourself. You know, if you take one step after listening to this today, just know that the kindest, most generous thing you could do right now is to love yourself enough to educate yourself to this concept of gaslighting, and where you have perhaps got some residual PTSD running because you were betrayed, right? Betrayal is trauma, and it's very difficult to trust yourself again after you have been in that, because you go into all the shame and blame of, why didn't I know? All the signs were there, and we beat ourselves up. I know that I did that. And that is the pure definition of gaslighting, is the manipulation to sow these seeds of doubt on you, that will have you questioning your own memory and recall and your perception and your sanity. And that person is going to use denial and misdirection and projection and contradiction and lying to keep control over you. So don't let them delegitimize your beliefs, okay? It's just an attempt to destabilize you. And if you want to better understand if this is happening to you or somebody that you know, I have posted the link to a checklist of signs and symptoms below, just so that I can keep this video short. I'm not going to go into that today, but I think the most important thing to take away from this conversation today, hi Gail, and please send me some love, send me some hearts, tell me if this is resonating with you, if this has been valuable, if this has been helpful for you or somebody that you know that really is sending out a very quiet, silent cry for help, that it is possible to change this. But just know, you know, that a lot of times people that are gaslighting don't even know that they're trying to manipulate you into not believing in your own reality or your gut knowing. And this is not about giving yourself up either, to say, oh, shame, you know, they've had such a hard life or they've had such a hard childhood, and make their reason for treating you the way that they are okay. It is not okay. And huge damage is being done every time you are constantly invalidated, that you give up your sense of self, and lack your self-esteem. You know, you don't know who you are if you're at that stage that I was at, where you honestly don't know who you are anymore, because you have been manipulated into believing that you're worthless, or, you know, you're fat, you're stupid, you know nothing. I know what that feels like, and I just want you to know that you can change it, right? I don't want you to end up being depressed and anxious all the time, and feeling like you have to figure this out all on your own. So if you find yourself making excuses to your friends and families so that you don't have to explain what's going on in your life, or you feel that it's not safe, or if you feel like you can't do anything right because you're always being criticized by your partner or your boss or somebody that is supposed to love you, know that that's a good sign and symptom that it has nothing to do with you. This never has anything to do with you, okay? And I don't want you to feel hopeless or joyless. I want you to get back to loving yourself enough to change this. So stop apologizing, okay? If that's something that you do, and I recognize that in so many women, that they're saying sorry all the time for stuff that they have no rhyme or reason to be sorry for. And that's just because they don't trust what they think has happened. So they're always thinking that they're doing something wrong. And again, it often starts very early on in life, for a 7-year-old, where we're told that, you know, we have it smacked out of us sometimes, verbally or physically or mentally, that it's not okay to ask for what we need. So know that you need to ask for what you need. And the first step in changing any situation is awareness. So I hope this little Sunday dose of medicine has been valuable for you, and to just start getting curious about where you may be under the influence of somebody's emotional or verbal abuse, and you didn't even know it because it's just become part of your life. And there is some antidote to regain your strength and intuition in the PDF that I've attached to this thread. So let me know how I can support you in reclaiming your love and your life. Hi, Heather. And just get comfortable being uncomfortable in the exploration, because there is nothing to prove and there's nothing to hide. There's only the opportunity and the choice to regain your strength, have a mind of your own, and to love yourself fully starts with being honest with yourself. So see what part you might be playing in enabling that, and know that you can say no. All right, it's all on the PDF, and I hope that you take advantage of it. And just remember, you know, it's okay. None of this is your fault. It's just the bad training of this reality. And I wish somebody had told me what this was when I was in it. That, you know, again, it's just like, sorry, somebody's phoning me. So I guess that's my cue to jump off. I will be doing a series of these, going in deeper into different aspects of betrayal trauma, and also how you can really start to get back to living in your true nature. So if you are interested in coming along for that ride, it's probably going to be 7 days of trainings that I will be doing inside of my private group. So if that's something that you would be interested in to really get strong, love your life again, join me over there at the Belief Challenge, and let's start to get... There I am. I have a really weak connection. So yeah, it's a fascinating topic. It's what my work is based on, is to really get you out of any kind of unresolved trauma. And just another side note on this before I hop off is, look at where this is happening in your environment as well. You know, governments, organizations, even in life transformation. Where are you actually being so subtly gaslighted that you have given up your power and your free will to know and choose what is intuitively right and true for you? So have a beautiful rest of your Sunday wherever you are, and let me know if this is valuable. Post your comments and questions below, and I will see you soon. Lots of love. Bye. Mwah.